Hello and welcome. We're live with my favorite program manager for .NET MAUI. Did I say that right, David?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not project manager. I'm not the one that's just like looking at deadlines and nagging you about your tasks.
Well, I'm really happy that you're here. Somebody pinch me. It's the real David. I'm not going to do a lot of talking here. I'll just hand it over to you. I think the people are more interested in what you have to say, and I hope there are a lot of questions, or maybe you already answer all of them. So I'll let you go ahead. Let me know when I should bring your slides up.
Yeah, cool. So welcome, everybody. We'll maybe just chat a little bit and let people filter in. And I'm looking at the YouTube chat. And so if you have questions throughout, feel free to go ahead and plop them in there. Generally ask me anything and I'll do the best I can to answer it for you. That's kind of why I'm here, so that you know what to expect from .NET 6 and .NET MAUI. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I am in St. Louis, Missouri, which is in the middle of the United States. It is early morning, 8 a.m. I'm usually awake by now, so I don't want to oversell the fact that I'm sleepy, but I am still on my first cup of coffee here, so we'll do our best. All right, let's go ahead and go to the slides, and I will show you what's going on. So yeah, I am David Ortinau. I have been with Microsoft now for 4 years, a little over 4 years, actually 4 years and 4 months. Before this, I was running my own company. I had a business partner for about 3.5 years. And then for like 10 years before that, had my own consulting company doing a variety of things, mostly mobile, did plenty of web, interactive stuff, kiosks, kind of environmental, interactive stuff, a lot of cool, fun things. Did some startups, but also worked with enterprise and healthcare and stuff like that. So I've worked with a variety of folks, but I really love working at Microsoft, working on Xamarin, Android, iOS, even desktop, Windows now, and Mac OS, which is why we're here to talk about the evolution of where .NET is going for building client applications. My contact information on the screen. Feel free to email me anytime. I am not the best email responder, I will admit, but I will do my best within a few days. I don't have a SLA, service level agreement. Yeah, right. But I'll do my best to get back to you. And that is my Twitter and my social pretty much everywhere. All right, let's see if I can get the slides moving forward. There we go. So what is this? .NET MAUI is the most productive way to develop native apps that perform great on any device that runs on Android, iOS, Mac OS, or Windows from a single code base. So it's just kind of the all-up value proposition statement where we try to distill down the most important things for everyone that we are trying to deliver, that we are working towards delivering as part of .NET MAUI. So I thought I would break down what each of those values, how exactly it is that we are delivering these things. So first of all, from a productivity standpoint, .NET Hot Reload. We've had XAML Hot Reload for a while. It's iteratively gotten better. And that kind of demonstrates really the strategy that we have all up for engineering, which is let's find that minimum viable product that makes you productive. Let's not hold it. Let's go ahead and ship it, learn from you as to how it's helping you and where the rough edges are, and then let's improve it over time. And so XAML Hot Reload has gotten better and better and better. We now have the changes only mode, which you can use in Visual Studio 2019 on Windows and Mac today. And it's a whole heck of a lot better than when we first shipped XAML Hot Reload. So you'll continue to see those improvements, both in terms of speed and coverage of scenarios that are able to be hot reloaded. But beyond that, we now are getting C# hot reload in .NET 6 with .NET MAUI. So this is method body replacement, essentially the body of a method. It makes perfect sense, right? Anything C# you put in there, it can have other dependencies, but that C# needs to get called again, in order for that code to be reloaded or patched into your application. So it's one of those things you'll just kind of get used to from the standpoint of making sure that you re-trigger that code, but you'll see it update. And if you attend Build later this month on the 25th, free event, go sign up for it. You'll see several demos showing this off. And then we'll also be shipping previews so you can experience this yourself. Razor and CSS can be hot reloaded for Blazor developers. And then CSS is already hot reloading now today with XAML. And then debugger, you can use it or not. So there are now going to be 2 modes. Right now, today, you have to use the debugger, and that's the only way you can do it. And the reason is because when we first shipped the live player, we found that relying upon local network connections, local network configurations over Wi-Fi was unstable in some pretty important environments. And so we needed a more stable protocol way to push changes back and forth from the running application. The debugger is the most stable way to do that. And so that's why we've relied heavily on the debugger. That's also where the edit and continue functionality works. And so it's a proven way for us to do that. However, there are plenty of scenarios where you don't have or don't want to have a debugger connected. Let's say that you have multiple applications running and they're all listening for changes, but they're not all debugging, and you want to be able to push changes to all those applications on all those different platforms at once. So this is a way for you to do that. Those of us who have spent time developing for multiple platforms for years and years and years know the value of being able to do that, at least on occasion, right? Like, why is my Android and iOS not looking the same, or not looking the way I want it to, but it's the same code? I want to be able to see those changes at the same time. What else are we doing? Well, you can connect your iOS device directly up to your Windows machine, use Visual Studio 2019 or the upcoming 2022, I guess. That's probably the first time I've ever said that number. I don't know. And then you can be off and running, building your iOS. You've also got Android, which is coming to that. We have the fast dev utilities for Android, and then Windows, of course, you can be developing directly there. So we're removing impediments, things like remote Mac build hosts for your day-to-day iteration loops to make you faster and faster and faster. Single project, we kind of use this as a catch-all phrase, right? About all the different productivity things that we are adding to the project system. So first of all, it's SDK style projects, which we're all standardized on. I think another way that I've heard it said is they're short form projects. And so this is the same project system that all the rest of .NET projects use. And it's much easier, much more reliable. It means that we're all using the same Visual Studio support. We're all using the same build tools and things like that that have been proven and are reliable, which is a great improvement if you've come from the Xamarin side of things. And so the single project also includes things like one place to put your images and your media and your raw assets and your fonts. So from a cross-platform standpoint, you just register it the way MAUI wants, and it's taken care of no matter where you're running that application. In the past, to compare that, you would have to go into the info plist on iOS and macOS. You'd have to go into the manifests or put things in specific folders for Android and for UWP Windows. So we're taking care of that stuff for you. Not only that, but we're also generating the different DPIs for you. And we're giving you very simple ways to say, okay, well, here's the base size for my image. So start here and then create the other DPIs. DPI stands for what? Density pixel, I don't know. You know what I mean, right? So I hate throwing out acronyms and assuming everybody knows what the heck I'm talking about. And so I catch myself sometimes. So DPI, somebody put it in the chat. What does DPI stand for? Let's see what else. Yeah, so it does that. You can also specify splash screens and app icons directly in the single project by just annotating what those images are. And then Maui will do all the appropriate work for you, no matter what the platform is. And you get a consistent splash screen and app icon, which is really nice, which also reduces the reliance upon things like Xcode, Android Studio, designers, and things like that. Dots per inch. Excellent. Thanks, Claudio. I trust you. Somebody verify Claudio. But that sounds good. Sounds good to me. Handlers are easy to override or extend. So this is a new architecture for how we realize controls with the native platform. So the cross-platform button, for example, talking to the native platform and saying, do these things for the button. That's now a handler architecture as opposed to renderers, which I'll touch on in just a little bit. And they're much easier to override and extend. Hopefully you never again, ever have to or think about, well, you won't, creating a custom renderer. And the custom renderers are obviously very powerful. And for those who have used them and know how to use them, you're comfortable with them, and that's totally cool. But for those who are trying to use a cross-platform framework and do not care to understand or know or worry about the native platforms, creating 3-4 classes and jumping through hoops of on element, this, that, and the other can be a hassle. Talking about images, what about SVG support? So single project .NET MAUI supports SVG in that it converts the SVGs to PNGs. And optimizes them for runtime performance. So right now, that's the current SVG support. And we think that is really the better way to go about it for runtime performance. However, we are considering also SVG runtime support so that you can drop an SVG into an image or a drawable or something like that, and it will resize at runtime. So kind of going along with our shapes and drawing APIs. So we're considering that level of support, but for right now, you can put SVGs into the resources images, and you can tell us what the sizes are that you want for that, and it will generate the PNGs. The PNGs you don't have to worry about, like what is it, and you just use the name of the image, just like any other image asset, and it will handle the DPI stuff. Latest news around dependency injection discussion. Okay, Roger. Well, I will think about that and see if I can shed any light. Let's see here. Let me keep going. And one other area where we are investing to increase productivity is MAUI graphics. MAUI graphics with graphics-based controls, meaning drawn controls or hybrid controls. Hybrid controls being something like an entry where all the UI of it is drawn, but the entry functionality is provided by essentially a lookless native entry control or some combination thereof. We've found that to be extremely performant. And from a productivity standpoint, why that makes you more productive is because you can have now a one-to-one consistent drawing across platforms. And you don't have to, when you don't want to, you don't have to fight the platform differences. Ooh, I had one more. And then there's lots of improvements in Visual Studio, such as the live visual tree. There's more investment into the profiler for mobile and desktop as well. There's also improvements to the debugger and on and on and on. So lots of Visual Studio-based improvements specifically for .NET 6 and .NET MAUI developers. From a performance standpoint, I'll try to move a little bit faster because we're 15 minutes in and I want to get to some code. So the handlers, that our whole architecture is much more lightweight, doesn't use iNotify property changed, much more portable, smaller bite-sized bits. So we've already seen from our early tests, and we need to continue doing our benchmarking, of course. But from early tests, we've seen 300 to even 400% performance boost. So that's painting controls to the screen rapidly. So that's very exciting, obviously. And those are still native controls. Once you add drawing controls to that mix, the performance gets even better. So we're really excited about the promise of where that performance is going to lead. Again, we need to continue benchmarking and prove that out. We're adopting layout managers to control stack layouts and grids and all the rest of that. And this is a pattern that more centralizes the logic for the layout. We can reduce the loops of layout and measure and layout to be more streamlined. But also, this is going to help us really troubleshoot problem areas. And so when we do have an issue with layouts, it's just easier to debug and troubleshoot. So there's going to be some nice performance wins there. We do today have vertical stack, horizontal stack, and grid layout, which are 3 reimagined implementations of those controls. Of course, today you have the compatibility stack layout and grid, which you can be using in MAUI. And we'll talk a bit more about compatibility stuff. So application startup, we use explicit registration, no reflection. It's a clear win. It's not a ton of milliseconds, but it's milliseconds being won there. So that's great. Source generators, we are starting to invest more in source generators. And so this is something where rather than at runtime figuring things out, it's all generated beforehand and then compiled. So you get that performance win. .NET 6 BCL performance wins. So the base class library of .NET 6, now that we're all sharing all the same BCL, any performance wins there. And this is mostly going to be non-UI code for us, but it makes it run faster. So bottlenecks of pulling data from the server, processing, iterating over data, things like that are going to be faster. MAUI graphics is a clear win in terms of performance, runtime performance. All right, so I also mentioned single code base. So this is, of course, single project stuff, all .NET code, all in one spot. That doesn't mean that you can't continue using multiple projects, multiple class libraries, or even multiple app projects. You can totally do that. So your projects that you may have today, if you are a Xamarin developer, you can move them forward as is in place. You don't have to adopt single project, and you can still use many of the features I've kind of put under that umbrella of single project, no problem. Multi-targeting helps us to stay in that one project and not have to go digging around into the platform-specific projects. You can touch the code that you want without having to worry about where to go. Images, fonts, raw assets, I kind of mentioned all of that stuff already. Single application point of entry. We are using the Microsoft extensions host builder pattern. We are following along with a lot of the ongoing discussions around startup.cs and how ASP.NET and David Fowler and others are considering modifying some of those things or are doing that. And so we're following along with that closely and seeing how those things apply to our style of development. Simplified binding of native libs. So if you've ever done a .NET binding project to a Swift, Objective-C, Java, Kotlin library, you know the very distinct kind of pain that is. We have come up with a couple of different ways to kind of minimize that pain by taking a different approach. And so we have done some publishing of documents and guides around that already, and we will continue to talk more about that. And anything that we can automate in those areas, we are going to do that. All right, so this is the other value statement, and this is kind of the one that we've been using for a while, but it speaks specifically to those who have been using Xamarin, right? So you have a history using Xamarin, and you'll hear this from me and from others often, where we're thinking about really 2 distinct audiences. We're thinking about the Xamarin audience, those of you who have used it for years, have experience with it, and so you have a whole set of things that you want to see out of .NET MAUI, and you have a whole lot of concerns that you want to make sure are handled in this transition to .NET MAUI. And so we speak to those, which is what this slide speaks to. And then on the other side, we have those who are maybe in .NET or outside of .NET, and they have really no experience with Xamarin, and they're coming to it fresh. And so they just want to know, here are the boxes and the things that I know are important to me and to my company for building cross-platform, multi-platform applications. What is .NET MAUI going to do for me? If we tell them all about Xamarin interesting things, they tend to get overburdened with, I don't know anything about Xamarin, so I don't know why that's even important, is kind of the thing there. So this is the evolution of Xamarin.Forms. In many ways, it is new, and in many ways, it's not new at all. So you can absolutely think of it as the next version of Xamarin.Forms if you are a Xamarin.Forms developer and user, from the standpoint that you don't have to rewrite your application. There is a migration path that is a bit more work than you would experience going from, say, Xamarin.Forms 4 to Xamarin.Forms 5. More APIs have been deprecated, more APIs have been changed. Instead of using renderers, you would be using handlers. But to make the transition, we have a whole set of compatibility pieces. So you can shim in your renderers that you need to use, and then you can also adopt features of MAUI over time as you want to refactor your code. You don't have to go all in all at once. So we've kind of got a big adapter. And I say big adapter, it's not like heavy, but to really gain a lot of the performance improvements and the flexibility of MAUI that we're doing, you will need to start migrating code over time. So first step, move your app to .NET 6 and get it on .NET MAUI. And then second step, get it to start adopting more of the MAUI architecture. All right, so this is the overview slide. I'm pretty sure this is all fairly apparent at this point. This is Android, iOS, Mac, and Windows. It is the multi-platform app UI. It is part of .NET 6, so we will be part of in probably preview 5, which will be coming out in June-ish, because we're doing a preview every month. We are going to be part of the .NET installer, and you will also see this in the Visual Studio installer, of course. Most of us will be getting this through the Visual Studio installer. So it will be generally available in .NET 6. We currently are on, preview 3. We've been working on preview 4, which is coming out at build imminently. All right, let's look at some code, shall we? And while I'm switching over, maybe before I switch over, let me look at the questions and whatnots. Is it possible to load XAML dynamically like it is in Forms? Absolutely. That API still remains, and you can totally do that. There will be a way to better design the UI. I love the WinForms designer. So, Oscar, we are not at this time investing in drag and drop designers. All of the investment is going into the Hot Reload, .NET Hot Reload story. We feel like this is a more productive and a better investment, but that does not mean that we'll never do a drag and drop designer. I would say that drag and drop designers is an area ripe for innovation. In particular, anybody that wants to start a company and build a nice drag and drop designer. One thing that we are actively looking at in terms of designers is Figma Sharp. So Figma is a web-based design tool, kind of like Sketch or Illustrator, Photoshop, but very much geared towards building application UIs. And so we have this Figma Sharp utility that VS Mac has been using that they are recreating all of their UI in Cocoa. They're removing GDK Sharp for performance and stability and consistency reasons. And so they basically design their UI in Figma, and then with Figma Sharp, they consume all of that in VS Mac code, and it's all native UI. So it's a really, really cool integration, and we may end up doing more there. We have a couple of small experiments where we've done some UI stuff. Xamarin.Forms has some stuff in that area. So that might be the closest and soonest that we get to something like that. Let's see, a couple more questions before I move on. Can we expect better support for iOS certificates? We're really, Marianne, we're really at the, mercy. We're at the mercy of Apple on that. So WWDC is coming up in a couple weeks. We'll see what they have to say there. I don't anticipate they're going to make any improvements to their certificate signing stuff. Certainly anything that we can do to make the certificate signing more stable within Visual Studio, we will do. But like recently it broke, and that's because Apple broke something in Xcode 12.5, or they changed something. So we have to react to that. And we don't know that they've changed it until it happens. Unfortunately, we don't get a heads up on that stuff. And oftentimes we end up pinging them and saying, hey, did you mean to change this? And then, days later we find out, yep, they meant to change it. Will we be targeting web in the future? And how does mobile Blazor bindings fit into this? So I hope so, man. I really hope so. But, we've got a lot on our plate to ship in .NET 6. So the current scope of work is what you've seen so far, and which we'll demonstrate here in just a second. And once we get beyond that, then we'll be looking very seriously at what can we do for Linux and what can we do for web, so that you can take some or all of your MAUI code to the web. I think MAUI from Frank Krueger is very, very interesting and might be a better fit here than, because we've talked to Blazor and what can we do collaboratively there. So we'll figure all that stuff out. But if anything, that's going to be considered for .NET 7, not going to be something we'll ship in .NET 6. Okay, let me go ahead. We've been on the Let's Code slide for a while. Let me flip over to All right. So I'm remoted into my Mac. Let's see. I got the control gallery open, but let's start with minimize. Let's start here. So I'll clean this up if I can figure out my Mac keystrokes now. So the first thing I want to highlight is MAUI Check, right? So MAUI Check is a .NET utility, .NET tool, I think is what we call them, .NET tool, made by Jonathan Dick, who's the lead engineer of the MAUI team. He's the team lead. And this little guy is a doctor utility. It's going to go out and it's going to say, hey, do you have the things you need, right? So even when we are integrated with the .NET installer, it is not going to go, the .NET installer is not going to go check for things like, do you have Xcode? Do you have an Android emulator? Visual Studio will. Visual Studio has the already, you're experiencing this today. It goes and checks and makes sure you have all this stuff. But from a runtime to, utility standpoint, this is a really cool tool. It will walk you through setting all this stuff up for the most part. If you are out of date with anything, it will also update you. So I highly recommend you check this out. If you go if you just search for MAUI Check, you'll find it. If somebody can just grab the link maybe and throw it in the chat, that would be pretty cool for me. Thank you. It always helps to have people to go find links and post them in the chat. Big shout out to Alex Blount from the mobile customer advisory team. Every time we're in a meeting and I just say something, 2 seconds later, he's got the link in the chat. So it's pretty awesome. Thank you very much. All right, cool. So I definitely wanted to highlight that. And for those who are wondering what we're doing in .NET 6, I know this question has come up. These are the SDKs we're shipping. They are all .NET 6, all up, right? So we don't call them Xamarin Android, Xamarin iOS, or anything like that. It's just .NET for Android. You're running .NET on Android. You're running .NET on iOS. We have Mac Catalyst here. You'll see that we also have Mac OS. So Catalyst is taking your UI kit and running it on a desktop with some additional stuff. And we feel like this is where things are heading. You get a much better looking app. There are really no restrictions that we have seen that would block you from building a really full-featured desktop application that runs on macOS using Catalyst. This is also where we see Apple investing their technology. So we'll see more what comes up at WWDC, which is Apple's big developer conference. You'll see that tvOS is here as well. Let's see, and of course Android, and of course we have MAUI templates. What you're not seeing, watchOS. So watchOS is not part of .NET 6. If you are doing watchOS work, you need to stay on the current .NET framework, Xamarin, watchOS stuff. We may reinvest in watchOS in the future, but really where we are with it is we have the scope to deliver this in .NET 6, and so some things didn't make the cut, and you can probably understand why, which I know is painful for those of you who are using it. I do apologize. I feel that pain. It's not a decision we make lightly to drop something or to delay or defer or whatever word you want to put to it. All right. So what we can also do, I'm just going to, let's just go back to this control gallery app. Well, no, let's do this. Let's go into demos and let's create a new application, right? So we have .NET New now, and we can go MAUI, and I can give this a name of, did I spell that right? Yes. So it's basically just telling me in the red there that there's a package that's not available in the configured NuGet feeds, but we should have the project here. Some of this is because we're changing where we're pushing things and whatnot. And I am running on the dev feed, which you saw when I ran the MAUI check earlier. Right? MAUI check. Where is it? Oh, come on. Anyway, you saw the MAUI check where I did the --dev. All right, so let's go into this folder here. And let's see. So we have a couple of things here. We have the shared project, which is your .NET standard, I guess, SDK style. This is where all the single project code lives. We do have a couple of other projects. We have the WinUI 3 and the WinUI 3 package project. These are things that are temporary, we believe. This one for sure will get absorbed. This will get absorbed into the single project. And then this packaging project, once WinUI and Project Reunion support unpackaged projects, then this will not be necessary and it will go away. We're waiting for that to occur. So the reason that it's complaining to me about things is because it does not have a NuGet config. This is also a temporary, whoops, come on, Mac keystrokes. No, not that. This. Thank you. This is also another Mac, or not Mac, sorry. Did I mention it's early? This is another temporary situation where I need a NuGet config. Oh, why my copy thing is not working. So once I have that, I can come in here and I can, wow, .NET, come on, .NET restore. It's not going to like that because I did it from the top level. I'm going to run this as a single project. So I'm going to go into the single project and you can see the code that's in there. I'll run the .NET restore from here and it should restore. It'll take a hot second. While that's happening, you can see what's in here. We have platform folders for the different platforms that are part of single projects. So Android, Mac Catalyst, iOS. Yeah, iOS is over here. And so that includes any of the platform-specific code that you would normally have found previously in other projects. We brought all those things together. And then in the resources folder is where I have resources, so images and fonts, and I've also been putting my styles in there. All right, cool. We have now restored. So if I go back and find my, oh, there it is. So I'm going to call this .NET build and run command. So we are working on getting a .NET run task command finalized and designed, and I'm not sure if that's going to make .NET 6 or what, but you're mostly going to be doing this from Visual Studio anyway. I'm primarily showing this on the Mac doing this because we do not yet have VS Mac support. That will be coming in the summer, which I say summer, and this is a global audience, so what I mean is mid-year, right? Let's see here. How many of you, summer is not mid-year? I would love to know that because I have to say that. I'm trying to be more globally minded. So what you see me doing here is I am calling a run task, and I'm passing it the TFM, target framework moniker, so -F. And I'm telling it I want to run the .NET 6 iOS platform framework. And I'm going to now give you this other argument, which is my simulator. This GUID right here is my simulator. And whoops, come on, man. No, totally just messed all that up, didn't I? Let's see here. Oh man, I guess I just have to get out of this thing so I can do, oh, it is just not going to let me. Here we go. So if I bring up Xcode, I can show you where to get that UDID. Mid-year is winter in South Africa. Yeah. Summer is June, July, and August. Okay. So Oscar's kind of on my schedule. Yeah. Yeah, Brazil is very different, right? So in here, how do I get rid of this guy? Do I do that? Oh, whatever, man. So in here, I can go to devices and simulators. I can go to simulators, and then you can see the UDID right here. Although I did find out you can copy the identifier by right-clicking on it. I just discovered that. And for anybody who is annoyed, as I am, that in VS Mac, the first simulator that pops up is the iPod Touch, you can delete it. Wah, wah. So there you go. All right, cool. So there's a little tip and trick for you. All right, so if I didn't mess up my UDID while I was jacking around with the keyboard, this should build. We've gotten past the DLL, so that means that my code actually compiled properly, which is good because it is a file new project. Dun, dun, dun. And while that's actually happening, if I come over here to my other tab and we go to, whoops, not that. Not that. Well, what are you? It's this. There we go. Learning my new keyboard. Let's see here. Work demos this, right? And then we open up this in code. We can look at the code while it's compiling and running. Let's close a few things down here. 837. So I mentioned these folders, right? If we poke into them, you can see the Android manifest, the main activity. I guess I'm running iOS, so I should probably show you the iOS, really. So in terms of like how things are wired up and the flow with which the application runs, you still going or did I bomb? I did. Yeah, I screwed up the UDID, didn't I? Way to go, Dave. Not you. Let's go back and find it again. Does anybody else do this where you just cycle through stuff? Because how am I going to remember to type all that stuff out, right? So the way that, here we go. All right. So you notice some good things. We have a beautiful, nice new template. We've got image support. This bot is an SVG. As a matter of fact, if we come down here into our resources and look, you can see that the .NET bot is an SVG. But it has been converted into PNGs to optimize it for runtime. We do have a button that can handle clicks, which is good. We have text updating, labels resizing. That's all good. We do have some font support right now, but you'll notice that we have some padding issues here on the button, which need to be addressed, and more layout things that will be coming. But for a basic file new blank template click counter, that's what you get. Let's see here. So I wanted to walk you through kind of the flow of how an application starts. So first of all, the app delegate, which is where your iOS and your Mac OS is going to begin its life. We are using MAUI UI application delegate, and it takes the startup class. So what this class is going to do, and you can go look at the source code up on the .NET MAUI GitHub, it is going to create the initial native window, I believe, but it's mostly, for our intents and purposes, going to create the host builder, and it's going to use startup to do that. So if we go look now at startup, let me get rid of this. Is this big enough for everybody to see? Should I make this a little bit bigger, maybe? This? Actually, why don't I do this? Font, zoom in. Do it again. Do it again. All right, here we go. So I'll make this bigger and I'll come over here. So this is the startup class. It implements iStartup, and everything is here in this configure. So first of all, the app builder is using forms compatibility. So a word about forms compatibility. This is what is enabling any renderers for existing controls to work. So we are in the process of porting controls and all the properties for those controls from renderers to handlers. In the meantime, we have this whole compatibility layer that adapts app concepts, styles and resources, other layouts that are not yet ported, and any controls, right? So that's what this is doing. If I were to turn this off, some things might blow up. But in the what I've been doing in my applications is I have been turning this off, and then I go in and I register explicitly the renderers that I need. Like, for example, box view. Box view does not yet have a handler, so I need to use the renderer. So I can say, hey, use this renderer to fulfill the needs of the handler. And we have actually, let me pop up a browser. If I go to the wiki, I'll bring my browser over here in just a second. Oh, not you. Anybody else talk to your computer like this, like I do? So this is, let's see here. This is the wiki. Of course, we have the status page where you can see all of the where we stand with all the views and buttons and properties. This is one that I'll talk about in just a bit. It is coming as a part of a larger initiative, which is very exciting. But for the moment, it's really annoying that you don't have a border color and border. But if we look at migrating from Xamarin.Forms, I think is where I put this, or it might be somewhere else. Yeah, not this one. But this will give you an idea of what your migration would look like if you have a Forms project and you're going to bring it over. This describes the startup class. So I would highly recommend checking this out. It talks about registering fonts, configuring third-party libraries, which we're also talking to our third-party component vendors about supporting this pattern as well, to give you that one place to register things. So you're not trying to go initialize in app delegates and main activities and stuff like that. Here's what I was talking about. Rather than using all of the forms compatibility, I pass in false, which says, hey, do the bare minimum and don't bring in any of the any of the renderers from forms. Just don't do that. Instead, I can explicitly say, when I'm running on Android for the box view, use this. When I'm running on Android for the frame, use this. Frame is also likely to be deprecated because of all the other work that we're doing that basically turns any other layout into a frame. So we'll talk more about that in just a bit. So yeah, I wanted to point you to this. So check these out, these quick docs. If there's other documentation that would be useful to see, I would be happy to add that. And then we can configure fonts as well. So I think if I hadn't called configure font, we would actually still be able to use Open Sans. I would just need to reference it by the whole file name. However, by doing this, I give it an alias. So somebody can tell me if I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty awesome. Let's see here. What else do I want to talk? Okay, so to complete the circuit in terms of where we start, right? We started with app delegate. It's taking in the startup. Startup is doing all this stuff. Use MAUI app And you could imagine in the future, use Fabulous app, use Comet app, use Blazor app, etc. It is going to call the app class. So the app class is the same that any Xamarin.Forms developer is familiar with, but this is a common XAML situation. Since I'm on a XAML file, I will call out this change. So we have a new namespace for the .NET MAUI XAML. It's no longer Xamarin.Forms. This is your clear indicator that this is a form or a MAUI project. By the way, XAML is not required. You could totally just use C#. Now, this is my application. So very similar to what you may have seen previously. However, really the main responsibility of this class is to create a window. Whereas before you would have set the main page, there is no such thing anymore. So you have a window, and that window takes a view. It takes content. In this case, the content that I'm providing to it is main page, this guy right here, right? So that's how you wire up the initial bits. I'll show you another project here. We've just added in Preview 4 a navigation page, so we can navigate now, which is sweet. A couple other things happening here. There is this init call. This is going to go away. And there is a platform-specific call for setting the image directory for Windows because it's different. This also will get put somewhere else or go away altogether. So these things are here temporarily. I just want to call out some things that in the future, once we get to November, we're going to have a super clean, very nice, easy to follow template. But for now, we've got some funky things in here. Okay, cool. So just, I guess, to round out this demo, you can see we have a content page. We've got resources, dynamic and static resources on platforms, all the things that we supported in the past. And the only thing that you would need to do to migrate your code forward is change that guy. That's all you got to do, depending on how customized your code is, right? But for forms related stuff, that's it. Pretty cool. We have also added these semantic properties for accessibility. So definitely want to call attention to that. We have a new Microsoft Learn course all about implementing accessibility in Xamarin.Forms 5, as well as blog posts from Rachel Kang on the engineering team. She and Shane Newell host a monthly accessibility customer call where we have been iterating and improving our accessibility story. So check that out. And this code all looks the same, right? Oh, this is going to go away, or this already has gone away, iPage. And real quick, I'll show you the CS Proj, and then I'm going to look at another project that's got a bit more stuff in it. So in the CS Proj, I mentioned we have the app icon, we have the splash screen, we have images. You notice that we're using a wildcard here, which is pretty awesome. Now, in terms of Visual Studio usage, you won't have to come in here and do this stuff. You can do it all through the property panel in Visual Studio. But it's nice to see that it's very easy to do in the CS Proj also. Don't be afraid of a little XML. It's fine. And if you're a XAML developer, you shouldn't at all be afraid of XML. Yeah, so this is the package reference we're using. And then some other stuff. These things will also go away. These RIDs, I think, are going to go away. And these are the different multi-targeted frameworks that we support. In this particular project, there will be a Windows one added once we get that absorbed, not absolved, absorbed into the project. All right, let me switch to another project, and then I'll go check out your questions. And I have one or two more slides. Hopefully this is cool and useful. Cool and useful. Will we support Shell? Absolutely. Shell is coming in Preview 5. It was very close on Preview 4 for a couple of platforms, but somebody wanted to take a vacation, so it didn't make it into Preview 4. So it'll be there in Preview 5, as will flyout page and tab page and navigation page, etc. So all those will still be there. Is it possible still to add platform-specific code like an app delegate today? Yes, absolutely. You can. Anything you're doing today is still possible. Yeah. I have yet to see something, I should say, that is not going to be possible. We're not cutting those things off. We're optimizing for the cross-platform scenarios is what we're doing, which is where the majority of our developers are. All right, let's see here. So I've got this control gallery. So it's same project style that you just saw. You can see I've got a whole lot more pages, but if we look at the app, the main difference here being that I am now giving it a navigation page, and I'm pushing and popping from the home page. So if we come over here and we go back to the gallery, because I don't yet have lists and collection views, I do have bindable layouts. So you can use bindable layouts today, which I am using in the build demo application, which I'll give you a peek of. You've already seen it on my screen, but I didn't tell you what it was. I am using bindable layouts there, so I guess I could do the same thing here. But this is the gallery showing all the different bits working and running. Some things not working and running, right? So this will get improved as support in MAUI is completed and filled out. So the main issue here with primary outline buttons, which is just a style, is that we don't have borders. And so we are working on putting borders, corner radius, and shadows everywhere. So what that means is everything kind of starts with brushes, and then we have to build up the shapes. And then once we have the shapes, we can work on clipping and containers. Actually, if you go look at the latest PRs, you'll see Matthew just did a PR for a container view draft. We have drafts of all of these PRs, but they need to be improved and iterated on and then brought in. So the big improvement in MAUI here is going to be things like corners and borders and shadows will just be supported everywhere using the same APIs you have now, but some additional APIs, so that you can put these things on layouts and other controls that didn't previously have them. Now, what this means is you will need to be aware of where you're using them and how you're using them. But what we see customers doing today anyway is you're already wrapping everything in a frame to get what you want. You're wrapping everything in a pancake view because a pancake view is a frame on steroids, right? So be aware that you are adding additional views to your hierarchy when you do some of these things. If the control doesn't already natively support these features, you end up wrapping it in another control. So that stuff will look better as things are released. But we have, and I'll be adding more controls and things to this as we go here. But you got sliders, you got switches, and I'm styling this based on the Fluent UI sample. So I'll continue filling this out. And we have another gallery also that's part of our code that runs UI tests. Let's see, is there anything else to call out specifically here that's interesting? You can ignore some of these. These are custom things. I've got a bunch of fonts in here. No, nothing really interesting to talk about there. I do have a full styles file, tons of styles. You can see visual state managers in here. I'm using style classes, using, pretty much all the features here. I haven't yet started using, we also have app font icons and glyphs and stuff like that. I'm not using triggers yet, so I think triggers is yet to be lit up. And as a matter of fact, if we look back at our status page, you'll see that triggers is yet to come. I want to show now. So this is the demo app that you will see at Build, and we will be open sourcing this code at Build. This is the weather app, beautiful weather app, right? So we have some navigation happening here. Got an embedded wind map, pretty cool. We've got a settings screen where we can choose the units. So filling out the features and shipping this stuff, you can see that the way that I'm doing navigation is not exactly the way you would do it in a real app. But once we have shell, that'll all be super beautiful. And more interestingly, if I can do this properly, I guess I have to come over here. I can show you the Mac Catalyst version. 100% code reuse, all the same code. You can see that it does a decent size of resizing. I can navigate back and forth. Got my maps, got my settings, cool stuff. Got some horizontal scrolls that usually work. It works over here, right? Yeah, it's a touch issue. So we got some horizontal scrolling and stuff. That's pretty cool. We have a couple things happening here. We have, first of all, down here, we have app actions. So we have integrated tasks into the taskbar, which is nice. We have the same thing happening over here. And this is because the Essentials API right here. No, not you. I got to figure out. You can't, by the way, in case you didn't know this, you can't right click on an app icon in an iOS simulator, which we all knew, but I just did. So we've got those quick actions here as well, app actions from the Essentials APIs. That's all part of MAUI. You don't have to go find anything different. It's just all there. If you want to use Essentials all by itself in another application, you can still do that. But when you're building a MAUI app, it's just there. So it's really nice. The other thing that we've done here is we have integrated in with the system bar. And then when I click this guy, I get a native local notification, all using the same code that runs on Android, iOS, macOS, and Windows. And real quick, I will pull up. I guess it's this one. Yeah, the weather app. So I was looking at my info P list to see what was different. So you can see in here, I'm using converters, using pages, got a bunch of services for the weather services, using minimal APIs, which is awesome. I'm using MVVM in this particular demo. And I've got a bunch of views for the little widgets and whatnots. Yeah, so pretty straightforward stuff. Let's see, let me go back to some questions. Why don't we, I'm done sharing my screen. If you want to drop that. And I'll go look at some questions here because we've got 5 minutes. I will stay longer. Y'all can hang out. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll back a little bit. VS Mac in the summer. Yep. So you'll notice what I'm doing here. Maybe share my screen again. Sorry. You'll notice what I've actually got here, and I'll go back to the control gallery demo, which I think is this one. Nope, this one. Yep. So, oh gosh, what did I do? So you'll notice, just want to kind of take up more space. In the bottom here, if I zoom, does that zoom? It does zoom. So down here in the bottom, go away. You'll see that I have this selector. I can click on this. I am clicking on it. It's not doing anything. Let me zoom back out. Maybe it's a zoom problem. Oh, it's at the top. That's my problem. So at the top, when I click that guy, I can choose from the different TFMs. This is all part of the Comet extension. Go away. So it's going to load my iOS now, and I can pick from the different simulators, which I've already been doing this. And then I can use the VS Mac shortcut, which is Command Enter, and it's going to now build, run, and debug. And this is all brought to you by Comet for .NET Mobile. So you can, on Mac and on Windows, grab this guy, and it's a open source, I think all open source, James Clancy project. It is not a Microsoft supported project, but if you wanted to help out, I'm sure James would love for some help. But it does support Android, iOS, and Mac Catalyst on macOS. It does work on Windows too, so I don't know what that's all about. But this is going to bring you also the MVU style stuff, which I saw an MVU question I thought in here. What was the MVU question? Support from MAUI and Tizen in the works. Yes, it's absolutely in the works. We have met with the Tizen engineering team and leadership, and they are working on it. You've actually probably already seen some PRs from them. They have been working in the MAUI graphics space as well. So they've got stuff running to a degree. They're active in the Discord channel as well. Okay, I'm back to the SVG question. How will the migration of existing projects work? I've kind of touched on that several times, and binding libraries. Check out the wiki up on the MAUI repo. It will be strong. There will be an upgrade, the same upgrade assistant you've seen talked about for .NET projects all up is going to support Xamarin.Forms to MAUI. Maddie Legere is kind of leading that from our MAUI team standpoint. And then in terms of code migration and things like that, you can check out the wiki. It has some outlined instructions, and we'll flesh that out more as we go. We know enough about how things look today that we can do that. All right, I really think I'm done sharing my screen. No, don't turn away my screen yet. Let me go back to my slides real quick. I know how to do this, I promise. So I did that. I'm not going to talk about this stuff. I'll share this with you. I actually gave this presentation previously, so this is just showing you all the stuff that I just talked about and walked through for the most part. This is just some smaller details on the layout optimizations. Okay, this is what I want to talk about. So what's coming up in terms of progress in the MAUI transition here? So brushes, shapes, clipping, and borders is a big deal, and corner radius. So I'm hopeful that a lot of that will show up in preview 5, but that's not too far away. So if not, and if anything misses from that, then preview 6. And then shadows will come after. We do have a PR for shadows. I think we need to probably have more reviews and stuff on that. Where is it all happening? These are the links for you to check out and track progress. We do have that status page that I showed you. We also have additional wikis and things like that we're updating regularly. So definitely check that stuff out. Never hesitate just to ping me directly and be like, what's going on? You're paying attention to this, right? And I'll do my best to answer you. And then, of course, Discord. Discord's mostly for those who are contributing and want to talk about the architecture. It is not so much for help me do XYZ, unless your XYZ is contributing to the project. So it's mostly for those discussions. And then, of course, we have the community stand-up, which everybody should know about and is attending. And we have the monthly library maintainer monthly sync. At this point, we think that enough is known and done that library maintainers should be able to start porting their stuff to .NET 6 and supporting .NET 6 versions. So I'm working on writing up a guide of how to do that. It's not too different from those who adopted .NET 5 last year. So there's just some additional things if you have UI considerations that we'll work on. Because yes, it's great that MAUI runs on .NET 6, but we're all using third-party libraries, right? And we want to make sure that they work as well. So it should be a very easy transition for the most part, not too painful, but we will work through that with library maintainers. So if you are one, please contact us and we will help you get onto .NET 6 and .NET MAUI. And also, we're going to definitely do some blogging around those things. So if you want some free PR from Microsoft for your library, this is your opportunity. We do have this experiment, which I've mentioned several times, the graphics. So definitely looking forward to more of that coming out. Also, that integration with Figma Sharp is really cool. But these are not things that we anticipate necessarily being stable in .NET 6. That's why we're calling them experiments. But when we see the performance benefits and the one-to-one design benefits, we really think that hybrid UI thing is really, really powerful. And Blazor bindings is continuing on. We do have a Blazor web view now. So that's really cool. And you'll see some awesome Blazor demos as well at Build. So check those out. Comment is continuing on. James has been working on it, James Clancy. And but still an experiment, but we're really excited about where that's going to go. We just have to get the foundation done first, which is MAUI. It's all built on that same core infrastructure. All right. So now I'm done with my slides for sure. That was all the super important information.
You sure?
But let's, what other questions? Did you see some other questions in here, Tobias, that I should answer? Or I can just scan.
I think there was one about testing automated UI tests.
I can't hear you, man. Can't hear you.
Why? Headphones should be on. Everything should be on.
Is shell still the same? The main navigation in MAUI. I mean, I definitely think that it's the easiest, and it's where we are innovating and iterating. But you can still use push and pop. That's not going away. So actually, it's the first navigation that you saw that was implemented here. Navigation page, push and pop. I mentioned we will support shell. Yes, platform specific stuff. Any plans to integrate Comet into MAUI? That's to be determined. Depends on how things go with the experiment. So if you're interested, please engage in the experiment. Automated UI tests. What are those? We have unit tests too, Glenn. What are you talking about? We have all of the tests. Is it possible to use NuGet packages that were written for Xamarin.Forms in a MAUI app? That's a great question. So no, they need to do two things. So those packages need to, first of all, update to the new namespaces. So the types all still exist that are in the Xamarin.Forms namespaces, but they need to be moved to the Microsoft.maui.controls.compatibility, I think is where they are. So they need to do that. And then the projects need to add the .NET 6 TFMs. So once those things are done, it should be a pretty straightforward compile. There should not be code rewriting other than those namespace changes. Now, you can use some if-defs, and you can say when building for .NET 6, generate the MAUI compatible stuff when generating for Xamarin.Forms. So you don't have to have two separate code bases or anything like that if you're going to continue supporting the Forms version long-term. Forms itself will be supported through November 2022. We are on the Modern Lifecycle Support Agreement, which means that we support the latest versions of the platforms that we run on. So Apple and Android are releasing new things every year, so that pushes us forward. In terms of non-UI libraries, they just need to adopt .NET 6 and support running on .NET 6. If they already support .NET 5, there is a chance that they will run okay in a .NET 6 project, but really all libraries should just add the real .NET 6 support. So that's kind of where the library stuff is. Again, I'll have guides coming out on that stuff. We're working through that right now with the Xamarin Community Toolkit. And we just met this week with Gerald and Brandon Minnick and Javier was in the chat, but he wasn't in the call. So we have a good idea of what actually needs to happen and the phases that it'll go through. So it's in good hands. Yes, that was a web view for the wind map.
All right, let's try this again. Can you hear me now?
Your mic still doesn't work, Tobias. It just doesn't want to work, man.
It does. You're not hearing me.
Support for new window class to use navigation from a view model like Prism without any additional libraries. I don't believe that we have plans to put anything like that on the window class. You can do navigation from the view model with shell today. So I don't know, maybe that's a conversation you can raise on the GitHub with the engineering team. .NET 6 for web apps, Blazor is the right choice. Absolutely. So if web is a key part of your mix, then go Blazor, and then you can also bring that Blazor into your desktop with MAUI, because Blazor desktop runs on MAUI. And you get really very cool seamless access to native APIs and native UI while still using your Blazor app in a native app. So it's really, really cool. So if web is a key part of your strategy today, Blazor is the way to go. And you shouldn't even need to make that decision at the very beginning, because you can bring a Blazor web view control into your existing MAUI project and then consume any Blazor application. So everybody else can hear you. I just can't hear you. Is that what they're saying? I don't know. It sounds like a total lie to me. Oh, I heard you giggle. Say something.
Yeah.
Now I can hear you.
Awesome. I thought about some sign language thingies to do.
Told you, man. Once I get going, you need a hook.
All right. So I will have to head out. So I'll have to stop you there. But it was great to have you. Thank you very much, David. A lot of things that I learned today. probably everybody else too. I still have something to give away. So for the first 2 people writing me an email to this address, you can win a license of JetBrains Rider. So if you want one, go shoot. The first 2 will receive a full-fledged license with updates for Rider for 1 year. And having said that, David, again, thank you very much. If you all still have more questions, as David said, feel free to reach out to him. You can see his Twitter handle, and yeah, for me, he has been mostly responsive. Just for builds, probably was a little bit busy, but yeah.
Very busy at Build, but hopefully everybody enjoys the build. We have a expert panel at Build also, which will be live. So follow that, check that out. We'll answer all your .NET 6 questions. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Have a great day in St. Louis.
Yes,
Getting
we will.
up
You too.
and a second cup of coffee.
I'm going for it right now.
All right. Thanks, David.
All
Bye,
right, see ya.
everyone.